Hey guys, welcome back to another podcast. Today we are with Mark, and he is the co-founder and CEO of NDAY. Mark, tell us a little about yourself and the company.
Yeah, thank you, DeAngelo. We got started about 3 years ago at NDAY Security. 20 plus years of experience in the industry. We decided to start our business in and really wanted to take full advantage of the advances of AI as it applies to offensive security.
Awesome. Now, for folks who haven't seen you before, give us a short version of your journey. How did you find yourself in the cybersecurity space, and what kind of pulled you towards offensive security specifically?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to be a lawyer to start off, and then I saw how large the books were, and I had a buddy going through law school, so that one wasn't going to happen. Always, I got
Mhm.
started in video games, doing hacking and trying cheat codes and stuff like that. So naturally gravitated towards that. Went to grad school where a bunch of my teachers were from the NSA, and the rest has kind of been history.
Mhm.
Worked at the big four in the offensive space, worked at some of the largest pure plays, some defense contracting, and then left a little bit to go on the other side and was an executive at a startup battling bots, which is a predecessor to AI security,
Mhm.
and met my co-founder along that journey at two of the largest MSSPs for cybersecurity. So I've known him about 10 years, and we just decided now is a good time. I think the disruption that's taking place in our space is going to be amazing. I think for individuals like you, now is the best time to be going into business for yourself to try something.
Awesome. I completely agree. I mean, we're in the same boat there going into business, right? So you spent over 2 decades inside some of like the biggest names in the industry. Before starting your company, what was the moment that you realized? And I know you just kind of touched on this now, saying that now is the perfect time to go into business, but when did you first realize that right now this is time to build something that you own and you can solve a problem in the industry?
Yeah, so I looked back. I took a little time off after I was done in the bot management space, and I looked at the messaging and the offerings that were still in the offensive security space, and it just bored me. You know what I mean? I'm dealing with stuff in
Mhm.
real time over there, and they're still talking about professional services and these lead times. And I was like, this is terrible. And so we really just wanted to go and disrupt the industry, whether we were successful or not. We were going to push the envelope. So this is the direction the industry goes, because breaches are
Mhm.
happening all day, every day. And a lot of it to us is preventable. So let's go and
Mhm.
build the reason why, if they are still getting breached, it's a very, very sophisticated threat actor that's targeting them versus, 99% of what you read on the news was highly preventable.
Now, you and your other co-founder, you guys came up with different companies, right? Two of the firms that are basically built, I would say, modern offensive security. What's the story of how you guys decided ending up to go build Entei together?
So my co-founder, I first worked with him at now a competitor, and they gave me a
Mhm.
business line that was making $250,000 over each year for 3 years. And when him and I got teamed up, we were able to grow it to 2 million in a year. So that's
Mhm.
kind of the yin to the yang. Like, I know who I want to start, helping me on the scaling journey to move past linear professional services revenue.
Mhm.
I got recruited to go over to a competitor that had a bigger problem. I wanted to just go solve a bigger problem.
Mhm.
They had a declining revenue. They had a portal based delivery method, and it just wasn't all clicking.
Mhm.
So that he was the first hire that I brought over, and actually ended up in a unique situation where they dotted line product and delivery into me to go fix the
Mhm.
problem, which is pretty unique. You normally have a delivery and you normally have a product, but ultimately ended up with a final say of how it went. And we grew the business line 42% year over year, where he was my delivery lead of one of my regions. And that
Mhm.
42% year over year was an 8 figure growth. Once you've built it and you understand all the complexities of a large organization, now is the time you can build very, very nimble, very, very small teams and get
Mhm.
humongous outputs.
Mhm.
So that you don't need to have the story of, I need to go hire 10 engineers. I need to go hire 20 product managers. If anything, at this point, it slows you down because
Yeah.
there's so many different opinions and it's moving so fast. So long story short, the intersection of where AI hit with our field, right place, right time, right expertise, was really kind of perfect timing.
Awesome. Now, a lot of these MSSPs or vendors or MSPs, a lot of people in the IT space, right? These founders, they really struggle. They're great in the technical aspect of things, but they really struggle with the growth and the sales side of things. Now, you and your partner have no problem with that at all, right? Can you walk us through your guys' exact process and how you guys were able to become so good at growing your guys' company?
It's actually interesting. We had a conversation on this morning with a very, very large MSSP that we have
Hmm.
a beta going in. I had to dumb down, and when I say dumb down, I can't actually know all the back end. I have to put
Hmm.
myself in the position of a buyer to build a partnership or sell a product.
Hmm.
So his role is to understand how the sausage is made and the gaps for me to go and be able to delight a customer. I have
Hmm.
to put myself in the customer's shoes and say, why us? What's different? And give a presentation layer. And this is from someone that was never a seller. This is,
Hmm.
I used to help our sellers get the last mile based on credibility and how it works, but it was already 80% there. So I've had to go and understand more the buying, the psychology of buying, the different things you need to do through procurement. He's also had to be more receptive to understanding this as the knowledge of me learning how to sell and partner in this environment has had to push down because there's always perfection and there's always, where you want to be. This space is moving so fast. If I
Hmm.
sat and told you what I sold 3 months ago, now what I sell is completely different
Hmm.
because we're able to iterate so fast. And that's where I said a large team isn't necessarily the best solution because
Uh-huh.
it's going to slow you down. But that's how we've had to tackle it is I've basically had to now put myself in the buyer's shoe because they have a lot of options. But I know
Mhm.
why we built it. I know the problem I had as an executive in the space. And so it's just presenting it. If you have this exact problem, I lived it. Now, if you don't
Uh-huh.
have that problem, I've actually recommended competitors, right? If you have a different
Mhm.
problem, I want to be helpful. I want you to still remember me and pick up a call if you stumble across our problem.
Mhm.
But if you're looking for one little niche of the problem, I'll happily refer you to someone that's a competitor. I think that's unique because I also don't want to bring you on and then have you unhappy.
Mhm. 100%. I think that if as business is just giving someone value, if you can't do business with them, you can for surely point them in the right direction. I love that. And I think that anybody that does that, that person will remember you and that person will also be a reference point to that guy does great business. Now, in our earlier discussion that we had off camera, you talked about how there was a time where you guys didn't go to conferences and during a certain period of conferences, you closed multiple deals, right?
Yeah.
Conferences are what a lot of people in the IT space are going to grow their business and to network and et cetera, stuff like that. What is your guys' specific workaround of how you guys are able to grow your personal relationships, your network that are ultimately driving you guys so much business?
I think we're unique in being able to do it this way in that we put our time in and we have a very good network. I think it would
Mhm.
be very hard to start from scratch without the base and do the approach that we do. But that
Mhm.
also is something we recognize when we said, can we go at this alone or do we have to do with a larger product? When we
Mhm.
grew the 42% in 8 figures, it was during COVID. Nobody was traveling. No one was going to the events. You just couldn't. So we took that playbook that I was successful with then and just apply it now. And
Mhm.
so, the one event we're talking about is in our industry is called RSA.
Mhm.
We always joke how many systems are actually going to this, how many deals are actually. I have been at companies for 10 years and I've never seen a stroke of a pen at this conference. We got 4 strokes of a pen during that same week, but it was not the same motion. And these were very large companies and very large deals. You have to dissect the business differently, building it the way we are and I mentioned this in the previous. If I had just went to a large company that said, put the tech in and go to market, it would be different than us as our own startup. If I was I was at one of the AI companies, I would have a completely different go to market than how we're having to do it. A
Right.
lot of our competitors are still competing in the $8 and $9 cost per click space. And we've
Mhm.
been able to, legally hack, right? Because I'm just saying we're hacking a process to where we get it down to 20 cents per click to our website. Well, your cost of acquisition of customers is dramatically different when you have these spends. And I've been at the large companies, I've seen where that grows, and they don't have the answer to why your cost per click is growing and why you're sending a workforce of 20 people out to a conference and nobody's coming back with a signature. Buying
Uh-huh.
is different. The way people buy is going to be different. I think it's a super exciting time that you're going to go and witness. I've
Mhm.
seen different cycles, right? So I wasn't a participant of the mainframe buying cycle, but you had mainframe buying cycle. You've had the desktop buying cycle. You've had the cloud buying cycle. And now you're about to experience the AI buying cycle. And what
Mhm.
you and I were talking about previously was it's not the deals that I can't flip a switch on. Me getting through a procurement process is the only slowness of growth that I'm
Mhm.
experiencing at NDAY.
Mm. Very interesting. Now, if you had to give somebody that's inspiring to be at your current position, a quick little masterclass of how to maximize their network, how to maximize relationships, to not have to go and run ads and pay for clicks and stuff like that. What ex- what advice would you tell them?
So I've never switched industries. I do side things and side investments, but if you look at probably what you'd most find me for, and I used to never be very public about it, is the space that I'm in. The buying factor in our space is trust and longevity, right? So I would know what your vertical you're going in. I don't think that's a blocker for someone trying to do the B2C space or the C2C space. It's a different buying thing, but an enterprise cybersecurity B2B space, I mean, you have to know this. You have to know the answers, right? I have to know the answers to a legal officer. I have to know the answers to a compliance officer. I need to know the answers to a testing team. I need to know the price. So you have to, I mean, you'd
Yeah.
have to have gone pretty far in the commercial or the corporate way to like replicate what we're doing. But I
Mhm.
don't think that's a blocker if you are excited about the new way, and specifically if you're going kind of person to person, B2C. I think you have a playbook. I see it in Miami all the time, right? I mean, I know
Um.
there's a level of is it real, is it not real? But there are people who figure out very good methods for the courses, for other types of direct to a consumer that I think the way you're going to consume, you're seeing it on, Instagram and some of those direct influential ways. I think it's going to go tenfold once the buying consumption starts with AI agents.
Now, tell us about trust. How do you build trust
Yeah.
in relationships, especially in a B2B space where you as yourself just said it, it's one of the main driving factors, purchasing factors, right? How do you go about it, and what advice would you give?
So, like I said, I think there are two different paths. If you're going the B2C path, don't disregard this. It would be a different method, I would say, how I would build it. I mean, look, there's some trust built based on the places that you've worked, right?
Mhm.
You wouldn't be hired by those places if you weren't solving a problem and that they're known for, right? So if I'm someone starting to get out, right, you got to get your foot in the door. I think that's probably harder to do today. I think you need to show experience before experience. And I had that problem actually. I remember when I was applying for jobs and they wanted 5 years of experience. I'm like, the technology hasn't even been out for 5 years. Like, how do they really want that? You all have different mediums like you're doing right now, right? You want to go into a corporate marketing world. I know you know this world, right? You know the
Mhm.
systems, you know how to make a presence, you know how to probably on the back end do a CRM to get me a
Mhm.
lead gen, right? you're whether you're successful in your endeavor or you use it as a resume builder, there are
Mhm.
other things I see in the technical world, right? Build an AI agent right now if you're technical. It's wowing people, but you have to build it in a certain way to really make someone like me be like, that person's special. I don't want something vibe coded. I can get plenty of vibe coded stuff. But once you
Mhm.
solve the problem, I wouldn't hire anybody personally in our space that I couldn't see an example of, like some GitHubs, or,
Mhm.
they've gone to a conference and put in time that they've on their own, or very notorious for some technique, or they built some AI agent that just wows me. And I look at some of the pillars I care about, like
Mhm.
that person's special. I think the people that are doing that, whether they're on their own and they'll call it a failure if it doesn't take off as a business, I wouldn't look at it that way. You're competing against people that are not going to understand this world, that have moved up and are just getting ready to move out. So there's a
Uh-huh.
very nice spot that if you're taking a shot like you are and understanding the basics of a business and where you fit in, those are still going to apply. But I do think it's moved beyond in a lot of spaces. Hey, where did you go to college? Show
Mhm.
me a letter of recommendation in your hiring cycle. They've got 1,000 resumes on the back end of the corporate world that they're looking at. Why are you
Yeah.
special right now? So I think, but like I said, people like yourself, some of the younger generation that I work with, I think you're going down the right path, sink or swim. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, he understands this business and built something that now I can learn from.
Mhm. Awesome. Awesome. Now let's get back to NDAY. Uh, Teach us a little bit about who your guys' ideal clients are and who you guys specifically serve, and what does life usually look like right before they come find you?
Yeah, so we built it on a premise that, look, I've bought a lot of software, I've used a lot of software, I've sold a lot of software and professional services, right? There's a little bit of magic behind it all to get it to a customer. We built it based on what we call unit economics or output economics.
Mhm.
So it isn't built on Flash, built on this. It's build a very purpose built solution to the problem and ultimately get it to where we can control the cost better than anybody else. Right. And so
Mhm.
that's what we did. And I can say mission accomplished there. Because we built it that way, we can go direct to enterprise, and we have some direct enterprise customers. We can work very
Mhm.
nicely with direct SMB. That's not our preferred method. Our preferred method is to work with partners that have the problem, whether it's MSSPs, consulting firms, smaller shops trying to scale better. That's actually our ideal market. We tend to do probably about 75, 80% in that market
Mhm.
comes direct to us that was either a design partner or there was some reason they couldn't use that ecosystem and have to go direct with us. But we ultimately like to make the technology. We like to be the R&D team, if you will, and we like our partners
Mhm.
to really own the customer experience, given how we set up the company.
Now, I think I know your answer to this, but what's been the hardest part of building your business so far? I know you talked about the super long sales cycles. What's some of that stuff that people don't see from the outside?
Co-founder and some of our advisors would joke every time I think we built something, I'm like, this is where this industry ends. We've kind of end goaled the product, and then something with AI comes out and you can use it in your product. So I would say, as we talked about the enterprise sales cycle, slow growth. And when I say slow growth means you can't just sell every day with every customer and turn a switch, is not something we control, right? It's something
Mhm.
they control, and depending on their complexities, what they have. And I haven't figured out the single button that fixes that. When you have 1,000 different customers, each one's going to have a different process you have to navigate. So that just slows down your business. And it's
Mhm.
not something anybody really likes to deal with, right? So, you get a backlog of forms and stuff and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
the pace of technology, I've never seen anything like it in all my life, and I don't know if you ever see it again. Stuff that you built 18 months ago that would have a sales cycle into a customer of probably 5 years plus is just gone. The way people are going to consume technology, I think is going to catch a lot of people by surprise. My generation has gone through this is going to be completely different than a younger generation that never knew the problems but that we used to have with a touch tone phone. So, if you look at the newer generations, and this is all happening, if you asked me, did I think this was going to happen when I started this? The answer was no. I mean,
Mhm.
you have AI companies that are basically saying you're never going to use an iPhone again.
Mhm.
So think of that from a consumability standpoint. It's just so I did not, I guess to answer your question, I didn't we make it so you can consume. You can consume us with a credit card and we'll spin you up the same day. It doesn't mean your
Uh-huh.
organization is going to be happy if you do that. And there's still a process we got to work through. That's something I can't go and create a hack for, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that's on the other side of it. And then just the pace of technology. There's never a better time to start a company than the day you did it, right? Because the
Yep.
technology is so far advanced. The downside is you're now got to get the customers, and the established players, if they're smart, are figuring out ways to put in that makes it just not a big enough pain to rip and replace you out.
Mhm.
The last piece I would add is I've never felt customers have one, more options, and two, an easier decision of buy versus build.
Mhm.
I've seen people in our space that are building internally similar things to what we've built. And if you have the staffing, I can't argue with it. If I was a CISO buyer, I have a good CISO buddies is literally trying to get it so a single person can operate a whole thing in AI agents. And if there's somebody that can pull it off, it's this person. So
Mm.
I think you have a bigger chance that a customer may say, we're going to build it ourselves once they see your workflow and how you build it
Uh-huh.
versus I really need that product anymore. So it's a very, very unique time and unique space.
I see, and I wholeheartedly agree with you there. That's the trouble that a lot of people are running into, especially different type of companies, like, you know what I mean? The ones that specifically build automation workflows, is that AI is going to get to a certain point where it's like you go up in to ChatGPT and you just ask it to build you something like a lead campaign and it builds it perfect. Of course, now you can't. It takes someone with that skill and the knowledge, right, to build that. But in a couple of years, we might get to that point where someone with no knowledge, no background can go ahead and have AI build it, which is pretty scary because that puts you out of business, right? Now,
And I think that is the longer term trend is do
yeah.
companies even look like companies? It's why we built the way we did. I could have taken $10 million from a VC and made a
Mhm.
big splash but I saw where this goes, right? So in our
Mhm.
market, we're used to operating systems coming every 3 to 4 years. What if there are no more
Mhm.
operating systems that come anymore? What if this is the
Mhm.
baseline of the way a human consumes? Now
Yeah.
you're in the next phase of this. And I think where for me it's a benefit is I've seen the cycles and I know the problems that still need to be solved. The younger generation is going to see, let me build without that even there. And if you can then back into solving it for that generation of consumer, it's a very hard problem that like traditional organizations have to deal with.
Now, every founder kind of has a moment where they almost quit or they hit a wall. Some things are not going right. I mean, you just talked about your industry changing so much, new tools coming out, new systems, new tech, right? I'm sure that that makes you want to pull out your hair some days. Has there been a couple days like that where you have felt like that, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think everybody, you see the news, you're built differently and temperamentally can handle stress that you just never knew. And this is a
Mhm.
position that forces it, right? If you're very stressful, hair on fire, this is not it. I mean, this is you can get hit with a bat in your abs and you're still out walking kind of role. I think if you believe the core thesis that you built on, and you go back to the core thesis that you built on, even with the outside factors that you can't control, do you still believe in your core thesis? And I check it. I check it. If you look at our website, I have some advisors that come from very prestigious places that bought into
Mhm.
NDAY because they believed in the core thesis. I have
Mhm.
customers that believed in the core thesis. So if you're struggling on your core thesis, that's time to reevaluate.
Mhm.
I constantly use outside validation factors of, are we in the right space? Are we building right? Is there a kill switch where I'm wasting my time on the planet?
Mhm.
Nobody's answered that. So until one of my advisors can go and tell me why the thesis of building NDAY is wrong and I'm wasting my
Mhm.
time on the planet, I overcome a lot of the noise.
Mm.
But if anybody thinks they're going to get in and out of a business in 24 months, highly unusual. There's some really
Mhm.
great resources out there on what the voyage you sign up for is normally, whether you take VC money, whether you bootstrap, whether it's your side project. They're typically not very quick. I'm in, I disrupted, I'm out. I think
Mhm.
for someone like yourself, for some of those younger, builders of companies,
Mhm.
right? I wouldn't go try and boil an ocean right now, but there are a lot of problems that if I look at, are they a $2 to $4 million problem that's repeatable, whether it's regionally or globally? There are a million of them.
Mhm.
That TAM stays underneath a lot of the big providers going into it, right? It's just not
Mhm.
attractive. So you've eliminated kind of the VC world and the PE world.
Mhm.
But I can tell you, there are different views on cybersecurity. I think AI companies totally eat up cybersecurity to the way
Mhm.
I don't invest in cybersecurity companies, even though I'm in it, other than my own, because I like our
Wow.
thesis. I think the publicly traded companies, and you can look in a year, either I'm right or wrong, they're literally proving out use cases for these AI companies that they don't
Mhm.
even realize that they're going to be left without a chair. And I've seen it take place through different buying cycles of desktop and cloud and now AI.
Mhm.
But I
Mm.
think there's a great opportunity to go build, the under $5 million businesses. I don't think a lot of them are quick. And I think you have to be very adaptable to the outside change of the technology and the buyer.
Now, looking at the rest of 2026, we just finished the first month of quarter two. What's End Day specifically focused on, and what should people be watching out for?
Great question. So we do our fiscal year a little differently than calendar years. So we're actually just a month in. Our products are pretty much there. We do have some cool stuff. We're going to do actually a little less publicly because what I tend to find is we're about 3 to 6 months ahead of a lot of our bigger competitors, and then I get it, and then
Mhm.
I got to go compete. So we have a
Mhm.
great pipeline. It's probably be a lot less public on what we do. We're solving some unique problems, and
Mhm.
so for each one of the customers on us is that we've really focused on is not necessarily outside building a whole lot of pipeline. It's if we're talking to you, let's go and delight you and let's go show you the differentiation. There's so much confusion in our market that I end up on calls more trying to weed through it.
Mhm.
There's a very instant gratification market now with everybody expects it to be instantaneously. And there's some portion that you do that way. There's other portions that you don't do that way. Having to navigate that is very tough. And I'm a living example of that. So for us, it's
Mhm.
more, I feel we built a fantastic product. We're getting good traction. We've got the right pipeline of partners, the right pipeline of some direct customers. And it's more just execution. I think some outside factors are going to play into our advantage.
Mhm.
There was a thing on about Uber's CTO saying they just spent their whole budget in 3 months that was meant to go a year. I
Mhm.
don't think he's unique. I think more people are going to stumble on that. And then you're going to see us as the idiots that were saying, hey, like you got to build a different way. And
Mhm.
ultimately, to your point, you pass that on to either the MSSPs or you pass that on to the customer. So I'm very comfortably sitting. I think the other nice thing about building a company right now is the timing you don't control on certain things, but man, have we
Mhm.
just been lucky with timing of certain things. We build a certain way that we're like things like in our industry are called Mythos and Chat GPT
Mhm.
5.5. They launch, they prove, hey, there's going to be AI that cleans up the front side very, very good. We
Mhm,
built from the start studying AI, knowing this time would come. We didn't know when. So I will probably be, you probably won't see as much from us. You'll see a little more of this. I love getting on and talking
mhm,
kind of this kind of shop. But in terms of press releases that we've done, we put out press releases. You can see we built in the space. We know how to build. There's not much to prove where there's some new incumbents coming on. I think most of the companies aren't here in 2 to 3 years because their cash flow is going to run out based on the
mhm.
buying cycle.
Interesting. Now, if the audience wanna learn more about you, Mark, or see what NDAY's up to, where can they exactly find you?
So this is probably where we're older school, right? We got a website, NDAYSecurity.com.
Mhm,
LinkedIn is probably our preferred method. You'll see some press releases come out. We don't do much on because we're B2B. We don't do much on TikTok or Instagram or any of that kind of stuff.
mhm.
But those are the two places to look for us.
Awesome. Well, Mark, I for sure enjoyed having you on. I'm glad you came on to give us some of your insight, especially, when it comes to AI, right, in the space.
Yeah, no, this is always delightful, and I'm always happy to do these.
Awesome. Well, there you go. There you go, guys. I'll see you guys in the next episode.